Ebenezer, it's going to be streaming live on the landing page for this event. Thank you so much. If everyone's ready, I'm going to go live now. Here we go.
Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much to so many of you for joining us today for this second live event on our joint project, Reclaiming Our Future, Youth Resilience on a Planet in Crisis. It's actually been more than 6 months since we launched the outcomes of this collaborative effort between APRI, Africa Policy Research Institute on one side, the Mastercard Foundation, and 17 inspiring young changemakers. And today's contributions and discussions will hopefully build on some of the questions raised last November. In case you've missed the launch, no need to worry. You can simply head over to APRI's YouTube channel and watch the recorded live stream. We promise you it's worth it. It's worth checking it out. I'm Hannah Lang, your moderator for today's event, and one of the people lucky enough to have been part of the amazing team that brought this project to life. It was an almost year-long process last year, and as you will see throughout this webinar, a truly cooperative effort between a number of parties who are actually also joining us today. But for now, to kick us off and to kick off this event, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Dr. Olumide Abimbola, Executive Director of APRI Africa Policy Research Institute. Olumide, the floor is yours for the welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. It is wonderful to see you all here for this discussion on a truly collaborative project that we implemented together with our colleagues at the Mastercard Foundation. Thanks to my colleagues at the Foundation for making this event possible. I was lucky enough to oversee the project on African youth resilience last year. And I can tell you that time flew past very fast while we were putting together these narratives and creative products that you've experienced and you'll be hearing more about today. As Hannah said, it has already been 6 months since we launched the project and our products that we launched along with it. with an interactive microsite, extensive reports, and amazing podcast series that I urge all of you to check out if you haven't already done so. The stories we got to tell over the course of this collaboration remain the heart and soul of the project. But today, we want to dive even deeper. We all know that, unfortunately, the overlapping crises we try to address with the project are only getting worse. Efforts for both adaptation and mitigation are not advancing nearly as fast as we need them to. And the spaces in which these crucial decisions are being made, where the funds are allocated and priorities set, they remain closed off to many young people who are well equipped to implement real change, especially young Africans. And at the same time, both Africans and young people often bear the brunt of the climate crisis impacts, both internationally, but also within communities. We are very happy that our project has been able to pave the way for at least some additional support to their efforts. And it remains one of our main objectives to encourage and facilitate more initiatives as they arise from the project. That's why today, with the help of additional experts who supported us in realizing this project, we will be discussing why it is so fundamental that we continue driving collaborative work and mutual aid in the climate space. Reflecting on the project's development, we repeatedly ask ourselves the following questions. Why is collaboration so essential in addressing climate change? How can collective action lead to meaningful change? And what significant challenges do young people, especially young Africans, face in collaborating for climate action? These are some of the questions we'll be discussing today. From what I know, you are in for an inspiring keynote speech in just a minute by a young African changemaker who has contributed to the project and who is an expert in the climate space. After that, you are in for a real treat with a panel featuring some of the young champions we got to work with over the project, and also my colleague Ayo Jebodi, who is representing the MasterCard Foundation. Without much further ado, I wish everyone a great and insightful event, and back to you, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Olumide. You did already raise, I believe, some of the crucial questions we'll tackle in today's event. And that was a great introduction to also the keynote speech we're in for in a minute and the panel segment that will follow. But now moving on to our keynote address, I'm very pleased to introduce everyone to our keynote speaker, Naira Hatem. Naira is the Race to Zero connector in the Africa team of the Climate Champions. And with her expertise on climate mitigation and adaptation, she has also already been a guest at APRI's in-house podcast, the Africa Hour. So feel free to check that episode out too. But that is not all. Naira has also been one of the very first people to be involved in the Youth Voices Resilience Project, the project we are discussing today, connecting us to some of the young people whose stories we were able to amplify with our reports, podcast series, and website. And for that, thank you so much again, Naira. Very much in the spirit of network building and collaboration, I believe. We are thrilled to be having her both delivering the keynote and join our panel discussion shortly after. And with that, over to you, Naira. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever everyone is. I'm very excited and very honored to be part of this discussion. My name is Naira Hatem, and I work with the Climate Champions team as the Africa Race to Zero connector based in Cairo, Egypt. And one thing that we do with the Climate Champions team is that we support the high-level champion of every COP in their mandate of mobilizing non-state actors. So we work with businesses, we work with private sector, we work with universities, cities, but we definitely work with youth. And it's been an incredible honor for me to participate in this project, even in a very minimal, small role, but it's been an incredible honor. And when Hannah shared with me the final output and product, it was just a moment of pride. And one thing that, while just reading the report, caught my attention or made me think of was that why we're doing this in the first place, which is for the people, putting people at the heart and center of our work, ensuring their safety and their health. And one of the case studies and the youth work, amazing, incredible, inspiring work was primarily on health, alongside, of course, other sectors, including waste, tech, agriculture, and many more. I also loved how the report was so much stressing that resilience is not a static concept, but it's rather a dynamic one, showcasing different and diverse efforts of youth from different parts of the continent, all working in different sectors, but with one goal and one objective, which is building the resilience and the adaptation of their communities on a local level. As Hannah also mentioned, the importance of having this collaborative approach, and I've shared this, and I've been working very closely in the climate space. I think since 2015, I was in grade 10 back then when the SDGs came out, and I mentioned this also during the panel, but I understood how it's important not to work in silos, but just the importance of ensuring that everyone is working together towards this noble goal. One thing that I was also very much inspired with was a quote from Betty, if I'm not mistaken. She mentioned that resilience is a female. And I really loved this, having this gender aspect. We work very closely with inspiring women as part of the Climate Champions team. But having this gender aspect and how women are disproportionately affected by climate was truly inspiring to read, and making sure that it's part of the report. And it's also very much relevant to one of our campaigns within the Climate Champions, which is the Race to Resilience campaign, working on increasing the resilience of 4 billion people by 2030. And of course, with the support of our Race to Resilience, Maria, who helped, of course, in the connecting with the amazing, incredible youth who were part of this report. But I think just finally, the report ensured or shed the light on ensuring that the African youth are being part of the decision making. And I think we will be discussing this further in the panel. But with that, I think I can stop here, but looking forward very much to the conversation. Thank you. And Hannah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Naira. To be honest, that was a very heartwarming contribution of yours. I'm really happy to hear from someone who has actually been involved so early on that the report has really resonated with you. And I agree, it covers so many different topics. You mentioned a couple. It covers the connection between climate and health, climate and agriculture, climate and education, climate and tech. And I think that was really the goal. One of the main goals of the report was that via storytelling, collaborative storytelling, we were able to highlight all of these nexuses that are actually affected when we talk about climate resilience and climate adaptation, and especially community-led climate adaptation and resilience building efforts. Thank you so much for that inspiring keynote speech, and I'm actually very much looking forward to having you as part of our panel in just a minute, and having you share even more of your opinions on the project, but also on youth collaboration within the climate space beyond what the project has highlighted. Yeah, I think we can all agree that it can be an incredibly difficult sphere to navigate, which is why we will hone in even more on these exact challenges today, and we will use this space to discuss how they can probably be overcome or at least addressed from different perspectives. And with that, I have the pleasure of turning to our panel segment. This is a quick call to action first to our audience. Again, thank you so much for all of you to join this discussion today. While we hear from our panelists, please use the chat, the Q&A, I think, function it is here, and leave us questions you would like to hear the panelists' opinion on later on. We will have a few minutes for these after the panel segment, so it's really worth it if you feel like there is a topic you would like them to shed some light on, or if there is a certain aspect of their work that you are interested in. Do not be shy and just post your question here, and we will try to get back to as many of them as we can after the panel segment. But for now, let's hear from a few of the project interviewees, as well as from one of our colleagues at the MasterCard Foundation. I have the pleasure of introducing you to our panel that you can see now. First of all, we have Ayobami Oyebode, who is the Director of Knowledge Systems, Product and Learning at the MasterCard Foundation. Thrilled to have you here with us today, Ayo. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hannah. It's my pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we are joined by Martha Oyanta Daniel, Director of the Legal Affairs Association of the Nigeria Governmental Organization Gombe and the Vice Chairperson of the Federation of International Women Lawyers of the Gombe State Chapter in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us today, Martha.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Next up, I'm happy to introduce to you Ebenezer Molia, member of the UN's Youth Advisory Panel in Liberia, Youth Envoy at HISA, and Deputy Executive Director at Environmental Care Liberia. Thank you so much for being here today with us, Ebenezer. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and it's a pleasure to be a part of this great panel, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Same here, looking forward to your contributions. And we will also be hearing again from Naira Hatem, our keynote speaker, who I don't believe needs further introduction anymore, but welcome again, Naira. So Ayo, let me actually kick off this panel with you and a more general overarching question, which is focused on why do we need youth collaboration and youth involvement right now? We know that this report was very much created with young people and not just about them. That was one of our main goals. So why do you think it's important that youth are centered in producing this kind of knowledge? What did we learn from doing it this way?
Well, thank you very much, Hannah. The report is a unique one, just as you have explained. It's a report by young people, for young people, and for others who care to listen to them. The procedure, the process, and the outcome of the report were all marked by control and direction given by young people. They were the ones at the center of it. It was their voices. It was everything they thought and cared about. Why did we choose this? Why should young people be at the center of a report like that? The reason is quite obvious, I think. One is that we're talking about climate change and climate action. Now, climate change and climate actions are about things we need to do today so that this continent, this planet can be habitable in future. And who should be more qualified to talk about future? It shouldn't be old women and men who, this is their future. It should be young people who really have a big stake in what that future looks like. And so the impact of the climate on the future is directly an impact on the future of young people. And that is why we think they are in the best position to speak as stakeholders, to write as stakeholders, and to make recommendations as stakeholders, as people whose very existence depends on it. And so that was why the main reason why we took the approach we took in producing this report. The second is we cannot continue to do things the same way, and expect to have a better or different outcome. So we had tons and tons of research turned out by experts who are not young people, making recommendations to young people on how they should live their lives and what choices they should make if they want to have a planet that is habitable by them in the future. And where has that led us? It hasn't led us to any concrete solutions to the problem of climate action and climate change. So the question is, why don't we do it differently? If we continue to tow the old path, then we'll continue to get the old outcome. And so we thought it's very important to switch a bit and let young people take charge of these. And then the third is that young people are not afraid to experiment and to innovate. And so if you want to see if something works, you need boldness to try it out. And young people have shown that they have all the boldness to experiment with methodology, to experiment with solutions, to experiment with recommendations, and to experiment with dissemination, which is what brought us to this point where we are disseminating this work at multiple forums instead of having them locked up in academic journals and books. Importantly, putting youth at the center of research resonates with the MasterCard Foundation research principles, especially because one of those principles is that we would support research that is not extractive, research that does not put people to see people as objects, but see them as important stakeholders in the process is the kind of research the foundation wants to support. And also we support research that is carried out not just for the sake of research, but for the purpose of impact. And so we looked at this report, the research that went into it, the process resonates very well, and the outcome resonates very well. And the dissemination resonates very excellently with the work we do at the Mastercard Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayo. And I really love that you highlighted this aspect that with that project, we were collaboratively trying to really move this kind of research, that kind of knowledge outside of the academic ivory tower sphere, right? So we were really trying via storytelling to make this knowledge and make these incredible efforts that youth are making more accessible to, I would say, a wider range of or wider audience. So I think that is a key point to highlight. Thank you so much for your answer. So we know, as you just said, youth can be very inventive. They can be very resilient. They can come up with all sorts of solutions for their community. We know they are leading climate action locally as well as globally, but we also know that they are often doing so in isolation. And I would like to now ask some of our interviewees, what has their experience been like trying to connect with others in the climate space, both within Africa, but also in global climate spaces? And how has this project, Reclaiming Our Future, so working on the report or collaborating with us on the podcast series on the microsite, how has this process helped to create or maybe challenge at least some of the gaps that are existing and build some new bridges? Ebenezer, should we maybe start with you?
Thank you, Hannah. And so the question is very smart. And as it relates to specifically what are some of the climate actions that has been done locally and globally, as well as some of the challenges that's been made as it relates to climate, let's say, activists. Well, for what I can say is that specifically in Africa, climate activists are very challenged when it comes to how they can see how best to cope what they do in their various countries. They'll be able to collaborate with other people to see how best they can have a space. One of the things I've observed so far as my personal experience is that young climate activists in Africa, they are not given much more support when it comes to attending these global conversations. Like currently, I think Liberia, where we've had the opportunity to launch 2 different local conferences of youth. I think that's a flagship program that has been supported by Yongo, and Yongo is the official children and youth constituency of the United Nations Framework Conference of Climate Change. It's a program that supports young people when it comes to attending the COP, which is the Conference of Parties that was held COP 29, COP 27 to COP 28. So one of the things that we have observed in Africa is that there are several young people that have the might, they have the energy to carry on smart climate education as well as initiative around, but they are not given the necessary opportunity. So one of the things that I think is very necessary that everyone is listening is that collaboration is very key to see how best that once you have the idea and definitely your idea meets up with now there's a MasterCard, there's an APRI. So to collaborate today, and today we are having this entire webinar. So the essence of collaboration is that you meet up with as an African youth that is striving when it comes to climate change activism and also want to project his entire idea on a global stage. So once that can happen, I believe that definitely the issue of globalization and localization can be intertwined. So collaboration is very key when it comes to this conversation like this.
Thank you so much for this response. I think you also already tackled something that we will discuss in just a minute, which is access and opportunity, and not just, that maybe wanting to collaborate might not always be enough, especially in a space so challenging and global as the climate space and the climate sphere. But Naira, would you maybe like to add to that? Because I know that you talked a lot about these kind of issues in your keynote speech already, so maybe you would like to elaborate.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah, for that. I think youth and working in isolation, I firsthand experienced that. And I remember this advocacy program that I volunteered in with the UN Resident Coordinator Office in Egypt. and we were trying to advocate for the SDGs amongst different communities in Egypt. So we went to universities, to schools. But I think one thing first that I've learned, and I think I've keeping this with me since then, is try to make your message very simple to the people that you're working with, and also try to align it very well with the local needs and the region, your region. Make it as simple so that people would actually understand what you're working on. And it's very important first to understand the local needs and contexts, and then come up with the right solutions for it. And then you will be able to bridge this kind of isolation from a local effort to the global effort. So yeah, I think one thing is just make sure you're understanding the contexts, the needs of your community, come up with the right solution for it. And then when you do that, you'll be able to bridge this isolation. I think the report came up with a very refreshing overview, which is around the narrative. So yes, we did mention several examples of the 17 African youth working on various sectors, but I also think that it just shed the light on the continent's potential and capabilities that is needed globally. And I think this was just a very refreshing approach and perspective while reading the report. And again, it's bringing us back to the importance of having this collaborative approach. And one thing that we've been working very closely with in the Climate Champions team is that we're trying to make the global campaigns make sense and relevant to other regions as well. I primarily work with the Africa team, so we're trying to make global campaigns such as, for example, the Race to Zero, which is about decarbonization and reaching net zero by 2050, making it more relevant to the continent's needs and context. And this was one thing that we were working on, is how to make the continent not only work in isolation, but to try and connect it with the global campaigns such as the Race to Zero. And one thing was again around the narrative. Let's change how we're seeing the net zero concept, for example, or the Race to Zero campaign from an African continent perspective, as for example, providing the continent as a renewable hub with the amount, of course, of renewables that it has, or how we can use the Race to Zero or the decarbonization efforts and work into quantifying and qualifying the efforts that is needed for adaptation. Yeah, so I just think working in isolation can be bridged very easily when you start locally and then you start connecting with what is happening in the international or the global sphere. So having this holistic approach, I think it's very important.
Thank you so much. This is actually a great metaphor also, that we're not just talking about bridge building in actually bridging people and bridging efforts, but also in the sense of bridge building in our messaging. So how do we get global, or how do we break down global or international goals and initiatives to the local level? Thank you so much for that. That is a great perspective, I think a great dimension to bring in. And next up, I would like to connect what Ebenezer actually already touched upon, which is the issue of access and equity. We know that access to funding, access to knowledge, and access to decision-making spaces continues to be highly unequal. The report sheds light on some of these challenges as well. At least we tried. We find them as cross-cutting issues in between the chapters that highlight the different sectors that are touched by climate adaptation and resilience building. But obviously, we can always elaborate on what has been said in the report. It was definitely not exhaustive. So maybe when we talk about these kind of challenges, would you like to share which of those you have encountered the most, and also what you think would make collaboration more equitable, more effective, what you would wish for? And Martha, I would like to start with you because I feel like you have very strong stances on this topic. So floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. It's good to be here and to talk about some of the challenges we experience as young activists. First, I'll establish that there's challenges when it comes to funding. It's a general challenge for young activists across the continent. Another challenge we have is mentorship. Mentorship is missing in this space. So most times you see people doing plenty activities, zero outcomes, zero impact, instead of having structures, because there's no mentorship. The larger organizations are not interested in mentoring the younger activists that are coming up. Sometimes, in fact, being a lady or being a woman is almost making us look disadvantaged because of the cultural and religious barrier. A woman is not supposed to be seen, she's just supposed to be heard. So when they meet activists like us, people just look at it from a particular perspective, and there is no mentorship, intentional mentorship in this space. So we have so many activists in Africa, young activists doing a lot of things. Organizations are not looking at them. No organization is calling for capacity building. Then knowledge. There is also the challenge of knowledge. Most activists have it up. They want to do a lot, but the knowledge on how to go about resource mobilization, about setting up an organization and the structures, about developing an annual operational plan, developing, other relevant documents, on how to go about it. And even when they're privileged to get funds, they don't know how to retire those funds. So you now see that the project is not, the resources is not getting to the actual target group. Or even when they implement a project, they don't know that they're supposed to use registered vendors for proper retirement. So even when they have given their best, organizations go through their details, their record, and their discrepancies, and it seems as if these activists are not being sincere. So for young activists, they have basically these challenges. And for female activists who are, Africa, we have some very weird cultures, although things are beginning to change. But sincerely, it is a very, very big challenge. And unless you are resilient, and that is why I appreciate APRI and MasterCard for coming up with this, that we can share our stories to the world. Because if you're not resilient in the face of all this, even in the face of the impact of climate change, where we are having practically in Nigeria, and I believe people have been hearing of various conflicts, farmer header crisis, or banditry, and the rest. The spaces are shrinking. Both humans and animals have rights. So is it when people want, those who have the animals want to feed, they will have to fight through with humans, and it's resulting in violence. You have people living in IDP camps, women and children displaced, and these are some of the things. But in the midst of all that, we still choose to be resilient. And so for survival, or for how we can bridge this gap, is to see that organizations, bigger organizations, call particularly for mentorship. If you are an activist and you have an organization, or from 0 to 5 years, 0 to 2 years, you're not even registered, because some people don't know how to go about registering the organization. Please let them be intentional about calling for capacity building, call for mentorship, internship, and the likes. It will go a long way in exposing us to other opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martha, especially for highlighting again the mentorship component of education. I remember actually vividly that part during our interview, the initial conversation we had, where this topic came up, and how big of a part of the education chapter is actually now dedicated exactly to that. So thank you again for highlighting it, and also for highlighting that while spaces are shrinking, it is important to be resilient, but it's also not always possible to stay resilient without any resources. So we need to work on enabling people to practice resilience as well, I think. Ebenezer, you already touched upon this topic in your first response. Would you maybe like to add something just very quickly?
Thank you, Hannah. So just to add up quickly to matter. So for me, I'm privileged to serve in the role as a panel member of the Youth Advisory Panel of the United Nations in Liberia, where specifically, as part of my role, we give advice to the resident coordinator of UN in Liberia. Yeah. So one of the things that normally I've come to realize and been challenged on is that many young people also, like she spoke of it, many young people, they have the ideas, they have the flow to get started, but the aspect of being registered, because UN doesn't do business when it comes to people who are not maybe legally registered in the country through business registry, something like that. So they find it very difficult to get fundings from these people to see how best they support their program in whatever ways best they think is necessary for them. So these are things so far I would say there has been some of the gap when it comes to getting funding for these programs or these projects. But I think as a young person or young people that is striving to see how best they can make an impact when it comes to smart climate, and it is important that they try to put that vigor and see how best they can do something that will give the ambience of who be donors to see how best they can get funding.
Amazing. Thank you so much again. And yes, I guess this is just a recurring notion that we have, is that we need to make funding not only available, but also accessible, right? And that also brings us back to what Martha said, is that we need to make these barriers lower in order for organizations and local initiatives to access funds when they are available. Actually, the next question kind of touches upon that issue as well. And Naira, I would like to come back to you first, because you said this beautiful thing about bridge building also between the global and the local. And I would like to discuss again a little bit the gap between local grassroots movements and large-scale international climate initiatives and their goals as well. So maybe you can elaborate a little more on how you think youth activists and organizations are actually uniquely positioned to bridge this gap without losing their autonomy, or also to focus on their local struggles. How do you think that is possible?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah, for the question. I think I will start with something that I've learned from one of our high-level champions, Dr. Mahmoud Mohildin, the high-level champion of COP27. He mentioned something called he invented this, the golden triangle of climate action, which is basically around changing in behavior, and then access to finance, and climate tech and innovation. And I think while reading the report, I've been reflecting on the golden triangle, 3 pillars. We've already changing the behavior. A lot of African youth are already changing and adapting to the climate change and taking the action. There are plenty of innovative solutions and climate technology, although still people are still learning, but I think it's on the way. And then finally, access to finance. And I think to bridge this gap between local efforts and then the international organizations and efforts as well, is to work on building the trust. So building the trust between your community and the work that you're supporting and delivering to them, but also building the trust between you as a project developer or as a youth and the international community and the international conversations. What my colleague Martha also mentioned around mentors and having a mentorship program is incredibly important. And this has been an approach that I've been personally following for so long, just following the conversations and what's happening in the global on the global level is extremely important. This doesn't mean that you will have to mold. This doesn't mean that you will lose your autonomy, but rather you just join and listen to the conversations, and you disrupt the market with your ideas and your new innovative solutions that is well adapted to your community and the local level and the continent. And then this brings me back to the importance of understanding the needs and tailoring your solution very well to the needs of your community and the needs of your people, and then bringing this conversations to the people that are speaking on the global level. For example, within the Climate Champions team, we launched a campaign last year under the high-level champion of COP29, Ms. Negar, and she was focusing, or the campaign was called Impact Makers. So it was focusing on individual efforts, showcasing their efforts on adaptation, building resilience, and also decarbonization. And it was a way for us to showcase the efforts that is being done on local level to the global system, so that they can understand and know more about what's happening locally. And I think that the report has done this beautifully in a way that it shows the world maybe that Africa has this narrative that we're working together on increasing the adaptation and, of course, ensuring the health and the safety of the African people. I think I will also just end with one thing that I've also learned from Dr. Mahmoud, and he mentioned this, that he had a conversation from one of his mentors. And again, it's bringing us to the importance of having a mentor and listening to the conversations that they are having, making sure that people know you, speak about your idea, get challenged by them, but also have a counter argument to their challenge. He mentioned something that don't always assume that people will understand what you're working on. Keep repeating, keep hammering, and make the message very simple. And don't assume that if you've said thing 1 time, 2 times, or 100 times, that people get it. Yeah, so I think I will stop here, but just the idea of building this trust locally, but then try to build the trust between your local solution and then the international system or the international discussions.
Thank you, Naira. Yeah, I think when it comes to trust building, persistence and also continuity that is really visible to people is key. And also I really like that, very much in the spirit of the project that we are highlighting here again, you are weaving in your own stories, like your own experiences, but with a lot of storytelling. So that is much appreciated. And also that it showcases the lessons and the learnings you had from being involved in a collaborative space. So very much appreciate that. And since we again talked about mentorship and mentoring, Martha, I would also like to come back to you and maybe see if you would like to add something to how mentoring and targeted mentorship of local organizations and initiatives can actually help bridge this gap between international efforts and international goals and the local potential that is there.
Okay. I want to say that international mentorship will go a long way in bridging the gap. It will build the capacity of local activists, local organizations, and it will be able to give bigger organizations and donors the platform to drive down the objective of whatsoever project they are trying to implement, whatsoever change they're trying to drive. Sometimes when there's a call for proposal, you know, the activists are just sussed around, and you know, you just have a project validation meeting, and that's all. They are told what is expected of you, and you know, because it is not consistent, you know, things keep getting out of place. And when peradventure MasterCard Foundation decides to work through APRI and say, okay, we are calling for mentorship. We want to mentor this particular number of youths in Africa. Now, it is the values from your organization that we will dwell on for the next 1 year. So by the end of the mentorship, we know what is expected of us. We know the standard, we know the guides, we know the values, we know what the outcomes you're expecting. You know, we already understand, you know, how your system works. So it will go a long way. So whenever you see a local activist working somewhere in Africa, you're just seeing somebody like the ambassador of your organization. He's just translating your values to the grassroots. So I believe it will go a long way in helping young activists build their capacity. So when a young activist is talking, he's not just speaking from the blues. He has been trained. He has gone through a process. And so you believe that whatsoever project or whatsoever assignment he gets or you give unto him, he will deliver well at his level. I gave you an example on retirement of funds. Most local activists don't know that when funds are given to you, you're supposed to use registered vendors for auditing. I made that mistake. You understand? As a local activist, Education as a Vaccine called us for a project, and they just gave us funds, and nothing was said. Oh, just go and, you know, have sensitization on sexual and reproductive health rights. And we just went and, you understand? If I was mentored by the organization for a whole year, I have an insight. I will deliver my work properly. So I am calling on bigger organizations or donors. I know most times funds are not released for mentorship or capacity building for activists. especially if the organizations are between 0 to 2 years or 0 to 5 years. Most of the criteria are, are neck bending. So you see those organizations that have spent 10 to 15 years are the ones going to apply. Sometimes when we see calls, just say, please, I don't have the capacity. I don't have the capacity. But if organizations are taking through local activists are taking through a process of mentorship, from the beginning, they will be taught on how to register an organization, what particular issue they want to solve, because you can't solve every problem. How to tailor it down to the grassroots. Resource mobilization, annual operational plan, compliance issues, because if you don't know anything on compliance, the local laws will chase you out. In Nigeria, we have the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They will freeze the account. So it's important that donors, bigger organizations factor this in. It's not just funds for implementing projects, but please build the capacity of people you want to give resources to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Martha, for also highlighting a lot of the background work that is more than necessary, that is crucial in order to implement any meaningful project, but that is often invisible, I think, and thus, as you said, largely underfunded. And I would actually like to stay with you because talking about capacity building, these pragmatic components and, basically having financial know-how and knowing your way around how to implement and do things. That is one side, but I think another one is also how to communicate results and how to communicate what you are doing, how to communicate about your work, right? And in my humble opinion, you are someone who does that very well. So I would like to discuss a little more, what role does storytelling and what role does media representation play in fostering cross-border collaboration, but also in highlighting the efforts around climate adaptation and resilience building on the ground. So would you like to, for example, share some examples of how amplifying youth voices has had a tangible impact and how you think also mentorship and capacity building can help in that area to make projects more visible and also more successful in the long term?
Okay, Anna, I want to say, for me, what gave me leverage and even brought me to this point that I'm part of this panel is storytelling and media. I have never accessed funds. I've done a lot around ICT for girls. I do a lot of advocacy, advancing women's rights, sexual health, and the rest. However, I've never accessed funds, but I tell my story. When I registered my organization, I opened a Facebook page, Advocacy for Children's Rights Initiative. I didn't have the funds for a standard website, so I kept amplifying my voice. Climate change, I'm talking about resilience today, I'm talking about adaptation, I'm talking about human rights violation. I kept engaging with the media and I kept, leveraging on opportunities. Even the opportunity, the call for youth to share their story on APRI, I saw it on WhatsApp. And I quickly chatted whoever posted it. And he said, yes, just apply, just apply. And that's where many youths are missing out. Many activists are missing out. They are doing a lot in Africa, but they are not telling their stories. Many people are doing a lot at the background, at the grassroots. They are not telling their stories. So how do you want the world to know what you're doing? So just like this project, is spotlighting youths who are doing a lot, I will beg that please, this project should not end. Once this batch is finished, another call should be made to other youths. And once in a while, either APRI or MasterCard can also encourage youths to share their story. It will help people know the effort of the effort that you are making down. And many people need mentorship. In Africa, sometimes when they started Facebook, people had meets around Facebook. They say, people who do social media a lot are not matured. Yeah, they like telling their stories. They are too, for me, I was just a tech savvy woman. I just love it. I just like sharing my story. I love the cameras. So it really helped me. But some people need grooming in this aspect. So please, it's still an aspect that we need to look at. and not leave youth behind. In fact, some people cannot face the camera or even write their stories. So just let the call continue and let there be a mentorship session. You'll get a lot of stories, I believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. And you're leading by example in every way. So thank you for sharing your personal story as well again with us. And Ebenezer, I believe you wanted to elaborate on this. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Hannah. So I think Martha have said a lot of things as it relates to media influence and also storytelling. And one of the things that I know specifically when it comes to storytelling is that it's very significant and important because if you are a local climate change activist and you're doing your work specifically in your community or your rural area, and you're not telling your story, how do you expect other people specifically to see that particular things in you to be able to help you and be able to give you the necessary support you may need? So storytelling is very important because nowadays we see many conferences, youth conferences around Africa, the world. You tell your story, you explain yourself, and most of oftentimes people offer you fully funded. There's opportunity to attend these kind of gatherings and meetings to meet other people around and see how to collaborate. So it's very important to tell a story and also engage in the media to see how best you can be able to be that person that you want to be. So storytelling is very important.
Thank you, Ebenezer. We really have to leverage that media space. And maybe before we move to the final part of the panel that is more, future oriented and is supposed to provide our audience with a little outlook. Naira, would you like to weigh in on this last question as well? Because I know you also have a lot of experience in the media space and especially with also amplifying young people's stories. So just wanted to see if you have anything to add.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. I think when it comes to media and communication, it's about shifting the power. It's about having access or giving access to youth when it comes to decision making. One thing that our comms team within the Climate Champions team always tells us is that when you're trying to advocate for a specific story, keep it as simple as if you're telling a story. And it's very much aligned with Martha and what other colleagues have said around storytelling. And I've seen this firsthand. So, for example, I remember at COP27, just before the COP27, within youth, they came together and they've been advocating for having a youth and children pavilion with the support of UNFCCC and Yongo, and it came to existence. And it's been there since then. Before that, we did not have a youth and a children pavilion. And it was just a great moment to witness a lot of youth coming together, somehow managing the fund, somehow making this pavilion stays and become a part of every COP. I've also remember a conversation that I've had with the Miss Kenya, the Miss Climate Kenya, during the Africa Climate Summit in 2023. And she shared with us her story around how climate change is disproportionately affecting women and primarily girls around the agricultural sector, and how she's been using her voice and her story to save other girls and women as well. So I think it's just as, of course, crucial and important to use the media and tell your story, of course.
Thank you. Perfect addition. And also to kind of draw attention to the, what might seem small, but still very significant wins in the institutional space. So thank you for highlighting that again, Naira, also with your unique perspective and kind of at the intersection of both spaces, I would say. So with that, I would like to open the panel up to all of our 4 panelists again for the final 2 questions that are, as I said, a little more future oriented. And we want to look to the future. So looking ahead, and I would like to get a short and concise as possible, response from all 4 of you. Looking ahead, what does a truly collaborative and youth-driven climate space look like to you? And also, secondly, what commitments do you think are necessary? So commitments from young people, commitments from governments, but also international organizations to really make this a reality. And I would like to start with Martha.
Okay, thank you, Anna. For me, the future for me, for youths, is I want a more collaborative space. Yes. I want intentionality when it comes to mentorship for youths, because most times that's what kicks us out. Zero mentorship, we don't last. There's no sustainability in our work. Yes. Then I want, when there is a call for proposal, let it be a group call for proposal. Let it be a group call for proposal where mandatorily there will be activists as some of the actors in the proposal, or youth-led organizations who are in the call for proposal. Then for youths, we'll need a higher commitment and mobilization. So I want to see a space where there is a higher mobilization and visibility for the work. I don't know if MasterCard has the youth wing of MasterCard or APRI. Maybe probably APRI is the youth wing, or other youth-led organizations. So want to see going forward. That's what I want to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. I think both organizations have a strong youth emphasis. But I think generally speaking, we might not necessarily need a wing, but just thorough integration at all levels of decision making, right? But Ayo, would you maybe like to go next?
Yeah, thank you very much, Hannah. Well, for me, the future is collaboration between and among youth organizations and youth leaders in the space that we're talking, in the climate action, climate change space. I think together we accomplish much more than we could have accomplished separately, even when added up. But I think for that to happen, organizations like APRI, like our MasterCard Foundation, needs to listen to some of the suggestions that Martha made. There is need to support the competence enhancement and capacity development for youth leaders, so that they can bring in suggestions, proposals that will be competitive and will be worth funding, and so that they can pursue actively the process all through. And so, I mean, it's unfair to expect people to be able to do proper accounting when they don't have the training for that. And someone can have interest in youth and in climate intervention, climate activism, climate advocacy, without necessarily having a ground in accounting. We don't want such people to be discouraged and disqualified in the competitive process. So it's a takeaway for me, but it's also something I want APRI to think about, and it's something other organizations in this space have to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayo. Taking notes. Next up, Ebenezer, would you like to weigh in on this?
So for me, I'm going to call this a call to action. So specifically as it relates to the future for the youth, what I specifically envision is that many have talked about them, and collaboration is very key, because if you can integrate a young activist along with academicians to come together, put their ideas together, a signal that is going to be very much something that will be big, and it's going to make a more impact. So there are a lot of opportunities outside there for young people. The only thing is that there needs to be focus when it comes to mentorship and to build up a capacity when necessary to be able to learn, and also unlearn some new things, and to see how best you can get engaged when it comes to these initiatives. So yes, my call to action is more about letting collaborate, and trust me, with collaboration, definitely there can be a result. Today, I not been for the collaboration of MasterCard and APRI. We have been here today. So that's one of the power of collaboration so far. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And last but absolutely not least, Naira, would you like to weigh in on this last question?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. I think for governments, I would say give access to youth when it comes to resources. So capacity building, education, ensuring that their voice is present when it comes to decision making. One thing I'm working on this year is around the NDCs, and how youth can get involved within their countries when submitting their NDCs. we're hoping and planning to have a webinar on that soon with some of the organizations, and I will be sharing soon as the concept note is being drafted. But I think, again, it's about ensuring that this trust is present between both parties. For youth, I would say several things. First is around, I had a conversation again with an inspiring women in Kenya, and they specifically told me is that when you have a space at the table, make sure to bring others with you. And this is something that I've been trying to do. So whenever you have an opportunity, if you have access to a fund, if you have access to a partner that you think might help others, make sure to bring them with you. Something that I've also learned is that just throw yourself in the ocean and you will find a hand to support and to help you with. If you keep, of course, on advocating for what you're doing. And lastly, I would say just go listen to the conversations that are happening on the global level, understand and listen to what they are saying, and then come with your own perspective, challenge what they are doing, not necessarily mold what they are saying, but just come with your own perspective after, of course, listening attentively to what is being said, but being present and aware of the conversations and what's happening on the global level is extremely important in order to be relevant to your government and then, of course, to the international community and international organizations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naira. And also, I really like that we already have the next exciting event coming up. So thank you for already advertising for that. We're looking forward to receiving more info and to joining, of course. And now we really have, we're a little over time, but before we close this panel segment and move on a little bit to the Q&A, because the audience has been posting some questions. Thank you so much for that. I would love to hear one final sentence. With one, I really mean one, from each of you. If you had the mic to every young African changemaker right now, what would be your call to action? So what do we need to do next together? One sentence, one thing, preferably. Let's go around very quickly. One sentence each, starting with Ayu.
Yeah,
Ayu,
thank you
you're
very
still
much.
muted. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to, one sentence, let's go together. Alone, we can do very little. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Martha?
Yeah, I'll say let's all go together and let's win together. We will do much than everybody doing their own thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Ebenezer?
So my sentence is that young people must collaborate.
I really like that everyone really understood the task and is being concise. Naira?
I think keep learning and keep pushing, but learning, of course.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. With that, we wrap up the panel segment, in which I think we have covered a wide area of topics. We heard on mentorship, we heard on funding, we heard on all of the different topics that the report tried to cover. We heard on storytelling and media representation. We heard on building bridges between grassroots and international climate efforts. So I think we covered a lot. And yet there are some people who have highlighted that they would like us to dive a little deeper into some topics that we have touched upon but didn't get the chance to elaborate. And I think the first one is something that you, Ebenezer, wanted to weigh in, which is the intersection of climate change and health, with particular attention to women's health. Thank you so much for the question to the audience member who posted it. And Ebenezer, the floor is yours for this question.
So I think the question as it relates to the intersection of climate and health, specifically when it comes to women being most vulnerable, I think is a grave concern, because what we know now in our dispensation, women and children are always the vulnerable ones when it comes to climate. Whenever a particular climate issue arises. So my analysis is going to be like this. We always know that specifically in the rural areas, like for Liberia, the one that we call them counties, when women take their children to, let's say, the farm and go to farmland, something like that, and you observe that there's a huge flow of jobs which is rain, heavy, full of rain. And definitely the gets very much, there's a homeless when it comes to that, because what George does is that uh, what rain does is that specifically it spoils home and also scares away from them from going to their favorite places. So one of the things I like to say is that, and having the intersection of climate and health, it creates the avenue to having one being very, that's it, close to getting waterborne diseases that is very much detrimental when it comes to uh, women and children. So that there's an intersection, but it needs to be very much taken into keen consideration to see how best it can be mitigated. But yes, when those things happened, definitely has a trickle-down effect on women and children so far.
Yes, Martha, absolutely. Please go ahead and add.
Okay, climate change has a very tight intersection with health because, while we're growing up, things were not like this. When there's a heat waves, you know that there'll be rising temperature. When there is flooding, there's waterborne diseases. When there is just sandstorm. We experienced sandstorm some days back here. People who are predisposed to asthma are already at risk. I even told myself, I said, thank God I was not asthmatic. Honestly, I would have had a crisis. So the climate change is overbearing on every segment of the society, of life in general. It affects nutrition. Children, recently statistics have been coming, aside the difficulty, economic realities in Nigeria, climate change is impacting nutrition. Farmer head, because the space is shrinking, there are no grasses for cattle. Now there's crisis, conflict. Now it is just what is available that people eat. You can't go to farm. Last year, the rains came very late. Even right now, the rains are still late and it will affect what we plant and the type of quality of food we produce. So people would eat what is available. And, for children, if you don't manage them well, we are down to malnutrition. So climate change affects health a lot. And it's something that adaptation needs to come in fast so that we don't get into a crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martha, also for highlighting, I think, a couple of aspects we were not able to cover in the health chapter of the report. Maybe just a note for the audience. The report is also meant to be very accessible in terms of its length. So we were trying to also keep it to, I think it was 30 pages or so, which is very challenging for a report covering or touching upon climate adaptation and resilience building, because the topic is so broad and touches upon so many different sectors. So especially the health and education chapter could have been so much longer. And I think, Martha, you really mentioned a couple of aspects that would have deserved more space. So just also to mention that reports are never exhaustive and are never comprehensive, but that we always need these kind of spaces in order to have conversations that go beyond and that really mention the challenges that in all their complexity. I would like to move on to another question that was asked, which was on the huge youth population on the continent and what good strategies are to mobilize that youth population. So Naira, maybe going back to you, what would you say are great strategies to really cut through the noise and get through to African youth?
I think one thing, of course, is this webinar. Having access to amazing people who already are working on incredible stuff will give, of course, the youth an opportunity to get engaged with them. For example, with the Climate Champions, what we do is that we have a youth program, a youth fellowship program, and we have youth who join every year from May up until COP. They attend the COP with us and they support every team with a specific task. So giving them the access to do that, I think it's important. But yeah, I think I would say that just make sure that you're connecting, of course, with the right people in order to make sure that you're aware of the right opportunities that are present. And don't be scared or afraid, just share your opinion. I was lucky enough, of course, to have the team making me join when I was slightly younger, but I've been with them since I was 22. I'm now 26. So I feel that I've been growing with the team and having a trust from them.
Which is also a whole new level of mentorship, I assume, just being able to grow up in a team and really learn from your work environment, from the team you get to work with on a day-to-day basis. I think this is a great opportunity that should be made available to more youth. Does anyone else from the panelists want to weigh in on this? This is not obligatory. It's just to see if Martha, I see you're unmuting yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, for mobilization, I want to believe that probably the youth from AU also joined here, the youth wing from AU and other organizations in Africa. There is a lot to do around mobilization in Africa. The migration rate from Africa, it's amongst youth is very, very high. Youths can take any risk just to cross the continent. So this meetings like this, programs like this are for African youths who are leaders to participate and synergize. Let's collaborate. Let's have a plan, a strategic plan for 20, 30 years to see how we can consistently mobilize youths to participate or to be activists, to take one or two actions within the continent that is context specific. Most times we are looking outside, we are looking out. There are so many issues in Africa to be solved, but we just believe when we cross over, everything will be fine. No. So I believe that global youths, Ebenezer is here, Naira is here, and the rest who are stakeholders and youths, work with other larger organizations, and even APRI can come up with, a strategic plan for youth so that we can mobilize them and see that they are very productive and contributed a lot to seeing that climate change is mitigated in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martha. So takeaway is definitely to also fuse different youth spaces across continents. That is, I think, also a big point for we want to share learnings or how we have overcome challenges in different contexts and what other youth can learn from this. And then you want a strategy plan. I really like that. That's a very concrete to do, I would say, that organizations and institutional actors can add to that to-do list. I have another comment, which is a bit longer. So I'm going to read it out. And then they were asking if you as a panelist can share a bit about how you were able to overcome that challenge. They are writing, we have innovative ideas to share and are eager to participate in platforms like COP, but our main challenge remains a lack of funding. From this webinar, we are hoping to find collaborators and supporters who believe in empowering grassroots action for global impact. Could the panelists maybe share a bit about how they have conquered the funding challenge? So I know that not all of you are constantly looking for funding yourselves, but maybe you have stories to share from where youth were maybe battling similar challenges and how they have overcome them. Ebenezer, your hand is up and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So I think to answer that question, there are a couple of institutions, normally when these global gatherings is about to be just the COP20. For me, I was privileged to attend both the COP 18 and COP 28 in Dubai, where then saw the information specifically where the opportunities were there, and I shared my story. I applied. Unfortunately for me, I was selected amongst them to see to be a fully funded delegate, where I attended the COP28 and COP 18 in Expo City Dubai, which was, I think it was in 2023. So there are a couple of other opportunities around. Young people can take part once you have a badge and you are very passionate and know how to share a story. Definitely let you share a story to them, and then who knows, it's possible you can be one of those best selected delegates. But however, let's keep in touch with the participants. We can, after this entire webinar, we can share our handles to see how best we can share opportunities when some of them arise.
Thank you so much, Ebenezer. And actually, in the chat, there was also the wish for you to share your social media handles in case you would like that. Maybe you can just, at the end of the Q&A section, just say on which platforms you can be found so that people can look you up and connect in case they want to, because I also believe this is an amazing opportunity to do some platform building. But Martha, go ahead with your answer.
Okay, there is a host of funding opportunities for youths. However, proposal writing is a technical skill, and that is where most youths get knocked out. It's not a letter writing, it's a very profound skill. And that's where probably I'll also plead with larger organizations. Please, you can call for a concept note for youths who are who are activists, who are novice, who don't even know. And that is where, again, mentorship comes in, so that you don't give somebody resources and he doesn't know what to do with it. It is not a Father Christmas money, or it's not for just to marry around. It is for you to solve a particular problem. But most youths don't know how to draft or write a proposal, an award-winning proposal. So it's not the availability of funding. There are fundings consistently running around the year, different openings. But do you know how to write a winning proposal? That's one. And that's where I keep emphasizing that organizations, donors, big organizations, funders, please focus on capacity building and mentorship for probably the next 1 year for youth-led organizations. You will see a huge number of youths applying to be part of this. And please, I want you to don't just take 50 from a continent. Please make it as large as possible. It's not just pouring money for a 6 years project, and sometimes you're struggling to get tangible outcomes from this project. So for that to be solved, those problems, please, I'll plead again that we should focus on mentorship, and a huge call should be made to Africa. You will get results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. Naira, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. And I want to keep it real here, so I will just give two advice that actually worked for me when I started working just after my master's. I would say two things. First, try to connect with the right people on LinkedIn. Believe me, it works. And from you can only find one person to connect with or even follow, and then that person will have other followers who will appear on their timeline so that you can follow. I know it's very simple, yet it works. It worked for me, knowing the climate champions, knowing Nigel. This is how I actually went into the climate champions. But also make your why very present and very clear in your mind. By why, I mean, why do you want to get engaged in a specific opportunity? For example, attending a specific regional event or even a COP. And your answer can be as simple as exploring new opportunities, exploring the conversations that are happening. But your why will be, why do you want to explore such opportunities, and be present. And again, I think it's very much relevant to what Martha said when writing or when trying to make a case for why you would need this kind of fund or why they should choose you. Your why is a key.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Naira. That's very valuable advice. And I hope it answered the question of those who put it in the Q&A. I would like to close the Q&A section with one last question, and please just weigh in very shortly if you want to, which is on the current geopolitical situation, or situations, as we should say. How do you think these are affecting and influencing the climate change movement? And maybe also to add to this question, how can we keep the focus on climate in these challenging times? Who would like to weigh in on this? I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
Okay.
Go for it, Martha. Thank you.
Yes, to keep this conversation going, climate change is no longer a myth, it is a reality. And that is one thing every youth must wake up to and must be their motivation, because the reality is biting hard, especially in Africa. We have incessant conflicts in Africa, and the youth must wake up and see that they start putting adaptation structures in place, and encouraging resilience amongst the youth, because as I used to say, the queue is moving, and as the older generation move, the youths too will move also. And so youth, every activist here should go back home and shout and say what you can say, and say climate change is no longer a myth. It is with us. It's a reality. And if we don't accept this reality, a time will come that we'll have no planet to live in. And if you have a planet to live in, you will have nothing to eat. If you have nothing to eat, if you have something to eat, you will have no water to drink. So it is imperative that every youth now wake up and start working in various segments of climate change. And for me, who am a lawyer, I will say I will champion the human rights aspect of climate change, because climate change is seriously impacting on human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. Good last words, to be honest, to be said on this very important question that was raised in the Q&A. Naira, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. I think it's about pivoting. So while, of course, understanding the challenges that is happening globally or even regionally within every region, I think when people, for example, are saying we can't reach the 1.5-degree goal, we say every half a degree matters. When they say we need policymakers to intervene and to take the action, we say we need a whole society approach. So just pivoting the narrative and pivoting how we're approaching this, I think it would definitely make the great difference. This doesn't mean that we're not understanding or being realistic on what's happening globally, but it's more or less we're choosing to focus on what we can actually do, and that there are partners and there are communities that are ready to help with such challenging times, of course.
Thank you so much, Naira. If I see no more hands, then I would actually close it here with a huge, huge thank you to our amazing panelists. Really, I think this has been an amazing conversation. I certainly enjoyed it. Raised a lot of questions, I think, that are worth exploring further. It was able to reflect on a lot of the questions that we raised during our live event, and really, I would say, bring the entire conversation on youth collaboration and how we can do joint platform building to a whole new level. So huge thank you to all of you for making the time and for really dedicating your expertise and bringing in your opinions and perspectives here today. I think it was hugely appreciated by everyone who joined today. And also for the remaining questions that we haven't been able to address, I was told that it's always a good starting point to go to the foundation's website and find out a little more about their work in case you're wondering if your project aligns well with their programs. So that is one advice I can give. And with regard to the social media handles, because some of you were asking how to connect with the panelists in order to maybe continue the conversation beyond this webinar today. I'm not sure if the hosts can actually post in the public chat or in the Q&A where you can find them, but Ebenezer already highlighted that you can find him on Facebook under Ebenezer Steve Molia. Martha is present on Facebook, LinkedIn, and X. And on LinkedIn, Ebenezer is present as well. I think LinkedIn is a great place to start, as Naira also pointed out. And I think you can also find Naira there and many other people who spoke today. So if you want to start with LinkedIn, and then maybe we can also afterwards update the event page. We will see what we can do with social media handles so that you have them handy. But for now, it has been an absolute honor to moderate this wonderful conversation today. We hope that actually 7 months after our initial, 6 to 7 months after our initial launch event, it was able to really, as I said, bring the conversation on youth collaboration to the next level for everyone. I hope everyone agrees that we were able to do that and really touch upon new issues, new questions. If you ever feel like you want to learn more, the project's report, podcast, and interactive microsite all remain online. for you to find out more information on our methodology, on our analysis tools, and the background of all of our contributors, including the ones who have been on the panel here today. So remember that you can find everything you need on our website that remains live, www.youthclimateresilience.com. And that website stays live. So please go check it out. It is also a very beautiful, collaborative, visual experience. It's a very beautiful landing page for our project. We really look forward to you getting in touch if you have any further questions or want to share opportunities or want to keep this conversation going. We're already pointed to a couple of social media handles, and obviously you can reach out to both the MasterCard Foundation and APRI through our usual channels in case you have any further questions on this project. And our hope with this project, as I already said in the beginning, was to really build a sustainable network. And I'm happy to say that since November, new projects were already shared with us through the channels that we were able to create. We were able to support each other with applications, for example. And I also witnessed entirely new platforms for climate action and storytelling, for instance, arising from our initial project. So that has been really wonderful to see, and I hope to see much more of that. And to close, I want to say again a big thank you to our partners at the MasterCard Foundation for making this webinar happen. This wouldn't have been possible without your support and without this platform. So thank you so much to my colleagues there, to the amazing colleagues at APRI who worked on the project and also supported this event, and also to Olumide Abimbola, the Executive Director, who gave the welcome remarks today. And finally, a huge thank you again to all of you and to the audience for joining us today. We hope to see you on our website or in our mailboxes or both. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us in case of any questions or ideas or remarks. We would love to read from you. And with that, I would like to close the event. Thanks everyone for participating today.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful rest of the day, wherever you are.
Thank you.